crash was violent. A small escape pod tore through the sky of a dead world, trailing fire and smoke before slamming into the barren ground. Inside, one human survived. His body ached, his lungs burned, but his heart was still beating. Slowly, painfully, he crawled out into the dust. The planet stretched around him like a graveyard, endless stone plains, broken towers, and ruins that looked older than time. The air was thin and dry, carrying the smell of ash. The sky glowed with two pale moons, casting long shadows across the empty land. The man pulled himself to his feet. His ship was gone, his tools broken, his food supplies almost empty. He was alone, or so he thought. The first hours were spent searching. He walked the broken streets of a ruined city, past statues carved in strange shapes. Some looked almost human, others alien beyond understanding. Their faces were chipped away, their bodies cracked, as if time itself had turned against them. The silence was heavy, too heavy. Every step he took echoed against stone walls, bouncing back as if the city were whispering his movements to something hidden in the dark. The human tried to convince himself it was only his imagination, but in his chest, fear began to grow. He could feel eyes on him. Night came quickly. The twin moons rose higher, painting the ruins in silver light. The human found shelter in a half-collapsed tower. He built a small fire with scraps of wood and metal, trying to push back the darkness. But the firelight only made the shadows dance, and in those shadows he thought he saw movement. At first, just a flicker, a shape shifting between broken walls. Then another, closer. His hands tightened around a sharp piece of metal he had salvaged. He stood still, every muscle tense. "Who's there?" he whispered into the night. No answer. Only silence. But silence was worse than sound. Hours passed, and sleep finally came, heavy and restless. He dreamed of voices whispering in languages he could not understand, of glowing eyes watching him from the dark. When he woke, the fire had died. The night was colder, the silence thicker, and there, carved into the dust beside him, were footprints, not human footprints. Large, smooth, almost elegant, his chest tightened. Someone had been there while he slept. The next day he pushed deeper into the city, desperate to find water, food, or maybe another survivor. The ruins stretched forever, a maze of broken stone. He passed murals painted on walls, faded, but still clear enough to tell a story of a great people, towers rising into the clouds, families gathered together, children laughing beneath twin suns. But the last murals grew darker, fire, war, shadows falling over the city, and finally, nothing but silence. The human felt a chill crawl up his spine. This world had died long ago, but something had survived. That night he tried not to sleep. He kept his eyes open, staring into the ruins, but exhaustion won. His head dropped, his eyes closed. And when he woke again, she was there. A tall figure, standing at the edge of the firelight. Her skin glowed faintly under the moons, smooth and blue, almost alive. Her hair fell dark around her face, and her eyes burned like two stars fixed on him with an intensity that made his breath stop. She did not move. She only watched. The human scrambled to his feet, holding his broken weapon tight. "Stay back," he shouted, his voice echoing. But she did not step closer. She tilted her head, studying him, silent as stone. Then, slowly, she whispered her first words, broken but clear enough to understand. "You, human." The man's heart pounded. "What are you?" The woman's lips moved again, her voice low and echoing like wind through the ruins. "You, stay." The fire crackled between them. The silence grew heavier. And in that moment, the human understood one thing. He was not alone on this planet. Something lived here. Something that wanted him. The human survivor walked carefully through the ruins of the alien city. His boots crunched against the dust, echoing between the empty stone walls. The air was thin, dry, and silent. Broken statues of strange figures stood in the sand, their faces worn away by time. He had been searching for food, for water, for any sign of life. Instead, he found only ruins and shadows. But tonight felt different. The silence was heavier, as if someone or something was watching him. He could feel it in his chest, a weight pressing down with every step. He gripped the broken pipe he carried as a weapon, his eyes scanning the dark alleys. Then she appeared. From the shadows of a collapsed tower, a tall figure stepped forward. Her skin glowed faintly under the alien moonlight, blue, shimmering, almost alive. Her eyes were wide, ancient, filled with a sadness too deep for words. Her hair, dark as midnight, fell around her shoulders in tangled strands. She was unlike any alien he had ever imagined, not monstrous, not robotic. She was something else, strange, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The human froze. His breath caught in his throat. She did not attack. She only looked at him, head tilted, studying him as though she had been waiting for this very moment. Her voice broke the silence, low, echoing, struggling to form human words. You, stay. The man's grip tightened on the pipe. What do you mean? Who are you? His voice cracked with fear and exhaustion. The alien woman took a step closer, her eyes locked onto him, unblinking. You give life. The man blinked, unsure, if he had understood. His heart pounded harder. Give what? She touched her chest, then pointed at him. Her words came slower, deliberate, each one heavy with meaning. You, human, strong, alone. Me, last. You, give life. His stomach dropped. He understood now. She was not asking for food, not asking for help. She wanted something else, something far more personal. The man shook his head quickly. No, that's not possible. I don't even know you. I need to get off this planet, not... Before he could finish, the alien woman raised her hand. The air around him shimmered, and suddenly the broken pipe in his hand felt hot, burning. He dropped it instantly. She had power. Strange power. You stay, she said again, firmer this time, her glowing eyes narrowing. You give life. Or you die. His chest tightened. He realized then that escape would not be simple. The woman turned and walked away, her long figure vanishing into the shadows of the ruins. For a moment, he thought she was gone. But then she looked back at him, her gaze sharp and commanding, as if daring him to follow. Against his better judgment, against all logic, he stepped forward. He had no choice. He followed her through crumbling streets and dark alleys until they reached what looked like an ancient temple. The walls were carved with alien symbols glowing faintly in the dark. Inside, broken fires burned with blue flames that gave no smoke. Strange objects hung from the ceiling, like the bones of a world long forgotten. And there, in the center of the temple, were carvings. Not of gods, not of monsters, but of families. Alien children holding hands with parents. The images were old, faded, but powerful. He felt a chill run down his spine. This was not just a ruin. This was a tomb of a dead race. The alien woman stood beside the carvings, her hand resting on her stomach. Her voice softened, but her eyes never left his. Me. Last. My people. Gone. You. Last chance. The human's throat went dry. Her demand was clear. She was the last of her kind, and he was the only one left to save them, or doom them, forever. But he was only one man, stranded and desperate. Could he really bear the weight of an entire species? The woman took one slow step toward him. Her glowing hand reached out, not in anger now, but almost in pleading. Human, strong. You. Give life. His mind raced. Trapped. No ship. No escape. Alone with a dying alien queen who demanded something he could not give. The story of survival had just become something far darker. And in that moment, as her eyes locked onto his, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was only the beginning. The human survivor stood frozen inside the ruined alien temple. The blue flames flickered against the walls, throwing strange shadows across the carvings of long-lost families. His heartbeat pounded so loud, it drowned out the silence. The alien woman stood before him, tall and commanding, her glowing skin making her look almost divine. Her voice echoed softly, broken but sharp. You stay. You give life. The words sank into him like cold iron. He shook his head, backing away a step. I don't belong here, he said, his voice trembling. I need to get off this planet. I'm not here for this. The woman's eyes narrowed. She moved closer, slow and steady, like a predator circling prey. Her shadow stretched across the temple floor until it touched his boots. You are here, she said, firmly. No ship, no sky, no escape. You, mine. The man's throat tightened. He tried to stay calm, to reason with her. Listen, I don't even know who you are. You can't just demand. But she cut him off with a sound that was not quite a growl, not quite a sob. She pointed at the carvings of families on the wall. Her hand trembled, her voice breaking. My people gone. Children gone. Queen last. She pressed her glowing hand against her chest. Me last. Her eyes met his, glowing with pain and fury. You give life, or in all end. The man felt a shiver crawl up his spine. She was not only asking, she was threatening. If he refused, she could kill him easily. Her powers were already clear. Yet behind her sharp tone, there was desperation. A queen without a people. A woman without a future. He whispered, Why me? Her gaze softened just for a moment. Because human strong, human survive, you, chosen. The weight of her words crushed him. He was the last hope of a dying species. But he was also her prisoner. That night she kept him inside the temple. She did not chain him, but the air around the doors shimmered with her strange power. An invisible barrier. Escape was impossible. She sat across from him in silence, her glowing eyes never blinking, never leaving him. When he tried to sleep, she whispered again, her voice carrying across the cold stone. You fear me, but you need me. Food, water, life, I give. You stay. His stomach turned. She was right. Without her, he had nothing. The planet was dry, dead, unforgiving. She was both captor and provider. The man clenched his fists. You can't force me. The alien woman tilted her head, studying him like he was both a puzzle and a prize. Force? No, but you will choose. One day. You see? Her calm certainty unsettled him more than threats. Days passed. She brought him food. Strange glowing fruit. Water pulled from hidden wells deep beneath the ruins. She watched him constantly, studying his movements, his words, his every reaction. Sometimes, in the flickering light of the alien fires, he caught her staring at the carvings of children on the walls. Her face, once hard and cold, would soften. For a heartbeat, she looked less like a queen and more like a grieving mother. But when her eyes returned to him, the demand never changed. You give life. It became her mantra. Morning, night. Always the same words. The human's mind spiraled. Was this survival or imprisonment? Was he meant to save her species? Or was he only a tool, a body to be used? He tried to resist, tried to argue. I'm not your answer. You don't understand humans. It doesn't work like this. But she only stepped closer, her hand brushing against his arm, her voice soft yet heavy with power. You will learn. Together. You human. You strong. You give life. One evening, A storm swept across the dead world. Lightning lit the broken towers. The temple shook as thunder rolled through the ruins. For the first time, the man saw fear in her glowing eyes. She stood near him, close, almost seeking comfort. When the storm raged louder, she whispered, "My world undying, my body and failing soon, no more." Her eyes locked on his, desperate. "You last chance." Her words hit him harder than any storm. He realized then that this was not just about control. It was about survival, a race standing on the edge of extinction. She needed him, not just his body, but his will to live, his human stubbornness, his spirit. But still, he felt the walls closing in. The weight of her demand pressed on his chest like stone. He was not free. He was trapped. And as the storm finally passed, leaving silence and dust behind, she leaned close, her voice almost a vow, "You will stay, you will give life, or you will die." The human closed his eyes, caught between fear and pity, survival and choice. And deep in the ruins of the dead world, the demand of the alien queen echoed in his mind, over and over, like a curse he could not escape. The days dragged on in silence. The human counted them by scratching lines into the temple wall. Each mark felt like a chain tightening around him. He ate the strange, glowing fruit she gave him, drank the water she pulled from the hidden wells, and waited for a chance to escape. The alien woman, the queen, watched him without rest. Her glowing eyes followed him in the daylight and in the shadows. She did not sleep, or at least not the way humans did. When he closed his eyes, he still felt her presence sitting in the dark, watching. Every day her words circled back to the same demand, "You give life." But the man's answer never changed. No. Still, she remained patient. Too patient. It frightened him more than anger ever could. One night, when the flames in the temple burned low, the human decided to test her. He waited until she left to bring water from the underground wells. Quietly, he approached the entrance. He placed his hand against the invisible barrier that sealed the temple. To his surprise, it did not burn him this time. The shimmer of light around the doorway flickered weakly. His heart raced. Was it failing, or was she simply careless? He pushed harder and stepped through. The cold air of the outside hit him like freedom. He ran. His boots slammed against the broken streets. His lungs burned with every breath. For the first time since his crash, he felt the open air without her shadow looming over him. He ran through the ruins, past broken statues, past collapsed towers, until his legs screamed for rest. He hid inside a crumbled building, pressing his back against the wall, gasping. For a brief moment he felt hope. Then he heard her voice. Human. The sound was not loud, it was soft, but it came from everywhere. From the walls, from the air, from inside his mind. He froze, his chest tightened. Human, she whispered again. Why you run? The air shimmered in front of him, and suddenly she was there. Her tall figure stepped out of the darkness as if the shadows themselves had carried her. Her glowing skin lit the room like a lantern. You cannot leave, she said calmly. This world. My world. You trapped. The man's heart sank. His escape had failed before it began. She did not punish him. Instead, she studied him with those glowing eyes, almost curious. You want freedom, she said. But freedom is death. Alone. Empty. You need me. The human shook his head, anger sparking in his voice. I don't need you. I need a way. Off this planet. Her expression hardened. She stepped closer, and for the first time her voice grew sharp. No way off. Ship gone. Sky closed. You mine. She raised her hand, and the wall behind him lit up with strange symbols. Alien markings glowed and shifted, forming an image, his broken escape pod. The metal was twisted, the engine shattered beyond repair. She had known all along. You no leave, she said. Only choice. Stay. The man's knees weakened. He sank to the floor, staring at the glowing image of his destroyed ship. All hope of leaving this world died in that moment. But as he looked up, he noticed something strange. On another wall, drawn in faded lines, were small handprints. Alien children's hands pressed into the stone long ago. Some were tiny, some larger, as if a family had once lived here. The Queen noticed his gaze. Her voice softened. My children, gone. My people, gone. Only me. Her hand touched the wall gently, her glowing fingers resting inside one of the small handprints. For the first time, he saw her not as a monster, not as a captor, but as someone who had lost everything. Still, her next words struck like a blade. You give life, or their memory die forever. The days that followed became a battle of will. He tried to resist her control, keeping distance, refusing her command. She followed, always watching, always reminding. Sometimes she whispered the demand in the middle of the night, her voice haunting his dreams. Other times, she showed him visions, illusions in the firelight, images of alien cities alive again, children laughing, families walking under strange suns. Always the same message. This could be real if you obey. The human's mind grew heavy. He no longer knew what was real and what was her power. Once he tried to fight her directly. He picked up a sharp stone and raised it when she came close. But before he could strike, the stone crumbled into dust in his hand. She looked at him with sadness, not anger. You fight me, she said softly, but not forever. You will see. You need me, and I need you. The human lay awake that night, staring at the cracked ceiling of the temple. He was trapped in a cage without bars, held not by chains, but by fate. And as he listened to the sound of her footsteps pacing quietly in the shadows, one truth sank deeper into his heart. This was not only a struggle for freedom, it was a struggle for his soul. The alien queen would not stop, and he was beginning to fear. Neither would he. The human stopped counting the days. Time felt meaningless on the dead planet. The sun rose and set across the ruins, but the silence never changed. The queen was always there, her glowing eyes following, her words circling back to the same demand. And yet, something began to shift. At first it was small. She started leaving food near him without speaking. Strange fruit, roots, and glowing water that gave him strength. She no longer hovered over him while he ate. Instead, she sat nearby, watching the flames, lost in thought. He noticed her shoulders droop when she thought he wasn't looking. Her face, once sharp and cold, softened in the glow of the fire. For the first time, he wondered if she was as trapped as he was. One evening, he gathered courage to speak. Why do you want this so badly? He asked. His voice was tired, but not angry. The queen turned her head slowly. Her eyes glimmered, reflecting the flames. She touched her chest, then pressed her hand against the temple wall, where the faded handprints of children still remained. My people. No more, she whispered. Children. No more. Only me. Her voice cracked on the last word. It was the first time he had heard it tremble. She looked at him then, not as a prisoner, but as if he were the only star left in her dark sky. You, last chance. The human felt a sting in his chest. He wanted to push the feeling away, to keep her as the monster who trapped him. But the truth in her voice was undeniable. She was broken, alone, and he was all she had. The next day, she led him out of the temple for the first time without barriers. She guided him through the ruins to a vast cavern hidden beneath the earth. Inside, glowing crystals lit the chamber, like stars. Pools of clear water rippled gently, untouched by the dry air above. Ancient statues surrounded the chamber, carved faces of her people staring down with silent pride. This place, she said softly. Last heart of my people. She dipped her hand into the water, then held it out to him. He hesitated but drank. It was sweet, purer than anything he had tasted since his crash. She watched closely, then gave a faint smile, the first he had ever seen from her. You live, because me, she said. You survive. Because us. The human lowered his eyes. For once he could not argue. Days passed, and the struggle between them grew less violent, less sharp. She still spoke her demand, but now it came like a whisper, not a command. You give life, we not end. Sometimes she sat near him and told broken stories of her world, of great cities that touched the stars, of children who laughed under golden suns. Her words were rough, simple, but her eyes painted the truth. A once great race, now only dust and memory. The human listened. He didn't want to, but he did. Slowly, her stories pulled him in, and one night as she spoke of her last child, a daughter with glowing hands who had died in the final war, he saw tears streak down her glowing skin. He had thought her strong, unbreakable, but in that moment she looked fragile. Something inside him shifted. Pity, maybe even understanding. But the bond came with danger. The more he understood her, the more he felt the walls of his own resolve weakening. Her sorrow was real, her loneliness crushing. He knew what she wanted was more than survival. It was hope. And sometimes in the silence of the night he caught himself wondering, could he give it to her? Should he? But each time the thought came, he shook it away. No, he whispered. To himself. If I give in, I lose myself. Still, her presence lingered in his mind, wrapping around him like chains he could no longer see. One night, as they sat by the fire, she reached out her hand. For the first time she touched him gently, not as a queen commanding, but as someone afraid to lose. You strong, she whispered. Stronger than my people, stronger than me. You give life. We live. You refuse. I die. Her glowing fingers rested against his arm, warm and trembling. Her eyes searched his face, looking for something, a promise, a sign, a choice. The human's chest tightened. He did not pull away. He couldn't. For the first time he saw not a captor, but a companion. A queen, yes, but also a woman lost in the ashes of her world. And in that silence between the firelight and the shadows, he realized the truth. This was no longer just survival. This was a bond neither of them could escape. The storm came without warning. The sky above the ruins turned black as fire streaked across the horizon. The ground trembled beneath the human's feet, splitting stone and shattering towers that had stood for centuries. He staggered out of the temple, dust filling his lungs. The alien queen stood on the steps, her glowing eyes fixed on the sky. Lightning burst in waves of blue fire, striking the broken city. The air itself screamed, tearing apart the silence of the world. What is happening? The man shouted. Her voice was low, shaken but steady. Planet, dying. Before he could ask more, the ground cracked wide, splitting the street behind him into a canyon of fire. He fell, grabbing the edge of a broken wall. Stones crumbled beneath his grip. His legs dangled over the abyss. The queen's voice cut through the roar of the storm. Hold! Her glowing hands reached out. A blast of strange energy wrapped around him, pulling him back to safety. He collapsed on the ground, chest heaving. For the first time, he saw fear in her eyes. Not for herself, but for him. The storm raged for hours. Buildings collapsed into dust. Fires consumed what little remained of the ancient city. The queen guided him through the chaos, shielding him with her power, her glowing body pushing back the flames and falling stone. When at last they reached the cavern beneath the earth, the human collapsed by the water pools. His body ached, his heart racing. The queen stood above him, her shoulders trembling. Her voice was heavy, almost breaking. You see now, she whispered. This world has no time. Soon, nothing left. I die. You die. All gone. She knelt, her glowing face close to his. But, if you give life, my people live again. Through you. Through us. Her words struck deeper than before. The storm had torn down more than stone. It had stripped away the last illusion of escape. He was truly trapped. The man pressed his hands into the dirt, his mind spiraling. He thought of Earth, of his people, of freedom. But all of it was gone to him now, unreachable across endless stars. Here only she remained. He whispered, "You're asking me to give up my humanity." Her eyes softened, glowing like embers. "No, I ask you to share it, your strength, your will, your fire, with me." The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the crackle of distant thunder. In that moment, something shifted inside him. He remembered how she had saved him from the abyss, how she had kept him alive with food and water, how her eyes lingered not with cruelty but with sorrow. She was not just a captor anymore. She was a queen without a kingdom, a woman without a future, and he, broken, stranded, forgotten, was the only one left to give her hope. But choice still burned in his chest. If he refused, he might die, but he would die human, unbroken. If he accepted, he would live, but his life would no longer be his own. The queen reached out, her hand trembling as it touched his shoulder. "Stay," she whispered. "Give life, or both end." Her eyes searched his, glowing, desperate. "Choose." The word cut through him like fire. He closed his eyes. Images swirled. Earth, the ruins of this planet, her tears on the temple wall. The storm above reminded him of one truth. Time was running out. Slowly he opened his eyes. His voice was low, steady. "If I choose to stay, it will be my choice, not your demand." For the first time, the queen's face softened into relief. Her glowing lips curved into the faintest smile. "Yes," she whispered, "your choice. But choice must be now." The ground shook again, dust falling from the cavern ceiling. The human looked into her eyes, and in them he saw the weight of an entire race pressing down upon him. He saw her pain, her need, her fire, and then he made his choice. What choice he made, no one outside that dead world would ever know. But in that cavern, between human will and alien need, the fate of two species was decided. Whether he chose survival or defiance, hope or death, only the ruins would remember. And as the storm raged above, his voice echoed once more in the darkness. "I choose." The cavern shook as the storm raged above. Dust rained from the ceiling. The glowing crystals flickered like dying stars. The queen stood before the human, her eyes locked on his. She had given him the final choice: stay and give life, or refuse and let both die. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence carried more weight than the storm. The man's chest heaved as he whispered, "I choose." Alternate ending, A. Dark ending. He stepped closer to her, his voice low and heavy. "I will stay." The queen's glowing eyes widened, shining with both relief and triumph. For the first time, her shoulders relaxed. She reached out, touching his face gently, her hands trembling like someone who had carried the weight of a world for too long. "You choose us," she whispered. But the man's voice was hollow, his eyes cold. "I choose survival." The bond was forged that night. Not in love, not in kindness, but in desperation. The queen's race would live again, not through hope, but through the chains of fate. Days turned to weeks. The ruins began to echo again, filled with strange new life. Yet the human's heart grew colder. He was no longer a man, but a prisoner, bound to destiny. The alien queen smiled as her vision of rebirth came true. But deep inside, the human wondered if his choice had saved life, or destroyed himself. And in the silence of the dead world, the stars above bore witness to a truth. Sometimes survival comes at the cost of freedom. Alternate ending B. Emotional ending. The human looked into her glowing eyes and shook his head slowly. No, he whispered. I can't be what you want. The queen's face froze, her light flickering as though it might die. You refuse? She asked, her voice breaking. Yes, he said, his voice firm but gentle. I refuse. But not because I want you to. Die. Because life isn't built on demands, it's built on choice. If your people are to live again, it cannot be forced. The queen trembled. Tears of light spilled down her cheeks, glowing as they fell to the cavern floor. For the first time she looked small, fragile, almost human. Then, all end, she whispered. But the man shook his head. Not all. I am human. And humans do not give up. We fight. We build. We find a way. He stepped forward, placing his hand over hers. Her glow pulsed faintly at his touch. Maybe I can't give you children, he said, but I can give you something else. Hope. And with hope, there is always another way. The queen's breath shook. Her eyes closed, and for a moment the storm above seemed to calm. Her glowing body dimmed, no longer burning with command, but soft with quiet acceptance. She whispered, Hope. Stronger than life. The storm faded. The cavern grew still, and though the ruins remained broken, something new had been born. Not a child, not a race, but a bond. Fragile, strange, human. The queen no longer demanded. She no longer threatened. She simply walked beside him, two survivors on a dying world, carrying hope into the darkness. And in that moment, the stars bore witness to a truth. Sometimes survival is not about giving life, but giving meaning. Closing narration for audience. Thus ended the tale of the stranded human and the alien queen, a story not of monsters and heroes, but of choices. Choices that shaped the fate of two species. Was it survival? Was it love? Or was it simply the endless struggle of humans to fight even when all hope seems lost? Only the ruins of that world will remember.